Virtual Parent Support Group Workshop. This is our final session today. Have you watched the others? Don't forget to like our page and share it with persons who are in similar situations to you. Today, we are helping you help your child focus on their purpose. Community mediation, talk it out, not fight it out.
So greetings everyone. So this is the last day and I hope that you had a significant, learned and enjoyable week of PS3. Now they said the last man standing is the tallest and the one that will make you smile. So today we are really going to talk about purpose as your guide. So when we think about the word purpose, we think about the reason of existence. We think about created as a particular item to fulfill something significant on earth. We think about determination. We think about resolution. We think about intention. We think about objectives and goals. These are some of the things that comes to mind when we think about purpose. But the big question always to the average person, so I want you to know this, is what is my purpose? So today we're going to enjoy the journey about purpose as your guide. Now when we think about purpose, the first thing that comes to mind is things like your thoughts. Some persons may say cognition. They may say, what are you thinking about? So it surrounds thinking. And when we think about thinking, I will start with a very theoretical perspective. And Aaron Beck developed a CBT in 1960. It was really diagnosed, it was really used for persons who were experiencing some level of depression. And one could say that it's most appropriate in this season because a lot of persons is thinking about what will be the future like tomorrow. Would this be the new pandemic? This pandemic, would it be the new normal forever? So some of these things make persons feel really depressed. So I think that when we talk about CBT, it's most relevant on this topic. So you may ask, what is CBT? It is around your thoughts. So what you think about, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about planning ahead? 2020 and beyond, does the future look uncertain? But you know, there is a Chinese proverbs that say, crisis produces opportunity. So we're going to have an opportunity as purpose as our guide today. So these are our thoughts. But you see, our thoughts make us feel a particular way. So some persons during this time, you may be thinking very perplexed. One minute you feel happy, the next minute you feel worried, sometimes you feel very optimistic. You look at the news and you're thinking, would it change? And when would it change? So there are days of hope and then there are days of despair. So we have different feelings. Sometimes we feel really angry. When we think about some of the lost opportunities and lost loved ones and all these uncertainty could make us feel angry. So we have spoken about what we thought of. Now we are talking about what we feel, but that influences the way we behave. So some persons may isolate themselves. Some persons may say, you know what, why plan for tomorrow? Why not just give up? So we are going to really, today is really about purpose as my guide. Do I still have purpose? You know, these questions. And I want to say yes. You still have purpose, and we're going to be planning from this day and beyond. We are going to plan. So when we think about planning, it really requires us to reframe. So when you think about reframe, I want you to think about a frame. Before we go to reframe, I want you to think about a frame. And when we think about a frame, what comes to mind is a picture. And what do we want to see in that frame? Some persons may have chaos in that frame. It may have fear, anxiety, hopelessness in that frame. But when we reframe, it's about us creating a picture that we desire. And I want you to sit down today and you know, yes, a lot is happening, but what if I have to put a picture in that frame? what would I reframe? What do I want to see? Do I want to see hope? Do I want to see joy? Do I want to see peace? So when we think about reframe, it's about looking at our situation as is, but yet, as my colleague would have spoken to you about solution focus, it's about now thinking about what do I want to put? How can I look at it from a different perspective? So that's reframe. So I hope that you have your frame and it's looking brighter. So I want you to think of things that are there dreams that you always wanted to achieve? You could think about them now and you could start planning for them. It's like, when you look at it through a very layman eyes, it's like putting a frame by your window in the middle of a stormy day and seeing a rainbow. And that rainbow brings hope. And it makes you smile because it tells you that the sun will come out again. So when we think about reframing from that perspective, it's about thinking about the sunshine is going to come out again. So we're going to look at some examples. So we're going to do some examples because you may say, Mrs. Smith, I know what you're saying, but how can it be? Can you tell me it in a more layman term? I have my adolescent daughter and maybe she doesn't want to understand. She wants to go outdoor. She wants to go outside and meet her friends and she feel like, mommy, you know, it's how much months later? It's since March. I feel like I'm locked indoors and you don't want me to go outside. You don't want me to have fun. And you're thinking so overwhelmed. She's overwhelmed. You are overwhelmed. So what she's thinking is that mommy don't want me to have fun. So we're looking at the picture frame. Mommy is just trying to protect me. She doesn't want me. My whole life is over. She doesn't want me to meet my friends. I feel so frustrated. And sometimes these are the things that we hear from our adolescents or young adults. But in reframing is to help that young man or that young woman understand in the midst of these adversities, it's not that you don't want them to have fun and enjoy their best life ever. However, what you want them to really understand in this moment is that their safety. That when they go out there, we have an enemy that living with us that we can't see. So he becomes more dangerous than a gun because he's there and you can't see him. He's like Casper, this dangerous ghost. And it not only compromises you, but it also compromises the entire family, becomes at risk. So now in reframing, your child is no longer thinking of, mommy is just trying to suppress me and I have no freedom, but now they understand the bigger picture. So that's what reframing does for us, give us the bigger picture. So you may say, you know what, Mrs. Smith, that's just for a teenager. What about if I don't have a teenager? Let's look at sometimes when we feel this way. I feel like nobody likes me. I don't really feel good enough. I feel maybe rejected. So you may be thinking this way. But how can we reframe it? You could start to say, what do I desire in life? Have I achieved what I desire? Are there goals I wish to achieve? What have I achieved? And when you start to ask these questions, you find you become more hopeful and there's less negative thoughts. So these are just some of the few examples. And maybe I should give you one more. What about someone right now? This is October. A lot of persons saying, our school, when we think about school, maybe primary, secondary, or tertiary, we may be thinking, what is this new normal? Can I survive? What about if I have a preschooler? Or I have to go to university and I always dreamt about being on campus and having fun and dressing and meeting new people. And so I had all these dreams that I dreamt about my whole life. But here am I have to be in front of a computer like this. Would they understand me? Are they seeing me? Are they seeing me? So some of the things is when we reframe, it is such an opportunity where we could discuss these emotions where we could look at mastering technology, when we could think about, you know what, I could get the proper lighting system. So it's taking what you have, your problem, and then looking at it through a different lens that gives you hope. So you have something to look forward to. So if we were together in the same room, I would have done this little activity with you for reframing. Have you ever seen it? Maybe you have seen it online with a 6 and a 9 with perception. So they place a figure on the ground and persons are on opposite side of the spectrum. And one person sees a 9 while the other person sees a 6. And you know, they could stand there arguing for hours. It's a 9, it's a 6. But you know what? In reframing, it helps you to say, from my perspective, it looks like a 9. And you could say, oh, but from my perspective, the curve is different, so it's a 6. Or sometimes you could say, come over on my side and look at it through my lens, and you could exchange. And that's when we think about reframing. I hope it is useful, and you could start reframing in the different aspects of your life. So you may say, we're going even more in a more scientific, so you might say, okay, those are really broad, but they are valuable examples. But there's the 4-step process. So first, we have to identify the problem. You may say, how do I identify the problem? What's going wrong in your mind? Have you ever felt like your brain feeling like it's swelling? Often when we are overwhelmed, we feel like you say, oh my God, my head feels big because I'm just so overwhelmed. So the first thing is identifying what makes my head feel so swollen. What makes me feel, what is going wrong there? What's just spinning and spinning? So that's one way. And sometimes you could draw the circle and you could say, you know what, what's really going on? And start to write down as things come to mind what is really going on in your head and being really honest. It's about challenging your assumptions. You may say, is this realistic? Some persons are worrying, when would COVID end? Will it end today? Maybe tomorrow. What do you think? And they consume their time thinking, will COVID end today or tomorrow? But then when we challenge that assumption, we ask, is it easier to worry when it will end? Or is it easier to prevent and protect myself in the event? So that is how we challenge our assumption, and it helps us now to reframe our circumstance. So okay, if this pandemic, like when we experience different flus like the SARS, and when we have HIV, and we have other pandemics that still exist today and live with us, and we have learned how to manage and protect us. So then when we reframe, we start to manage to protect us and our loved ones. And you start to test the reframe. So you say, this is what I was thinking about before. And when I reframe, I said, you know what, there are many pandemics that the world has faced, but we are here today. So it meant that our great-grandparents survived it, and our grandparents survived it, and our parents survived it, and I'm here and my children would. So when you look at it through a reframe, you are testing what you were thinking about, and it helps you now to go from irrational to rational. So that's just a little mindful exercise there that you could think about. So the next we go on to, how can I discern leading of life purpose and what really, how can I discern it? You know, what is this? You know, when we think about discern, it really means what it is. What is that? I hear people use the word discern, but really what it is and what is that? And life, when we think about life, you think about, some people say, is life a game? And a lot of studies have shown that persons have argued, is life a game? Because when we think if life a game, it's a matter of, can I master this game? Or even, can I play this game? And how should I play the game? So when you think about, during this time of pandemic, a lot of families were doing games. And you would have had to teach, some persons taught their children how to play cards, how to play maybe a domino. And sometimes life is about that, where one generation really teaches the other generation how to play this game called life, or this game of life. So it's really about discerning. And discerning requires a certain amount of trust. It has to go through some level of rigor, because you want to make sure that you are playing this game as effective as you can. So you want to know, what have I learned from my primary system about playing this game? What have I learned from my secondary system? What have I learned from my peers as I prepare to master the game of life? What opportunities out there? What have I limited myself? Do I feel these levels of rejection? So you put in, all your cards on the table. Long time you will hear persons say, put your cards on the table. So it's about, really, life is about, what cards do we have to win this game? So let's begin where you are. So set aside a specific time for discernment. Remember discernment, I said it's really about thinking through things. And it could be a day where you just sit down and do some reflections. It could be a particular month, like often culturally in the month of December or sometime January, persons sit and they just set aside time to think about, what do I project? But we have a dynamic year. 2020 is a year that is unlike no other, where even right now we could start to plan and project what our new normal would look like. You could find someone to help you. Like sometimes when your grandparents taught you how to play a game or maybe a new meal to cook, you could ask someone, ask someone to just help you on how to prepare for this game called life, or this game of life. So these are some questions that can help you. Who am I? A question that majorly remains so many question marks, so many clues. Some people, you could literally see a light bulb on their shoulders. Who am I? What do I believe? What do I believe is my purpose? Remember the first set of words? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I, the item, the particular item? Like a car in a garage, that item to be driven. What is my purpose? What item am I to be used for myself and by others? What about skills? What skills do I have? Some people may say, I have no skills. Talking is a skill. Preparing. Do you know that sometimes you have parents, even yourself, that can prepare amazing. They could put things together and prepare. I don't know if that's my skill entirely, but some persons could think about every single detail beyond the average thought about planning. So that's a skill. Some people may have a writing skill. Some people are talking skill. Some people have a doing skill. Have you ever met anyone who maybe could make up a bed without a crease and they didn't iron the sheet? That's a skill. There are some people could make a sandwich that look like, wow, it could just be showcased as an advertisement. That's a skill. Then there are some people who may say, I have an organizational type of skill, or I have a leadership skill. But I want you to know that we are all leaders because we have learned how to master our own lives. So that's a skill. What about a talent? What are you good at? So a lot of talent, some people could sing, they could do a nice play, they could dance, they could do a lot of things. Talent, they could organize, they could do a gathering. And that in itself is a talent on how they do it. And these things will help you to now identify your strengths. So these are your ability. What is my strength? What am I good at? And as you sit down, you could even ask someone, ask some family member, what do you find that I'm good at? So, these are some ways that could help you as you planning your purpose as a guide. But there's a theory called Johari window. And in it, it have 4 blocks. So I want you to think about like a window. You know how you would have drawn your window when you were small, your house, and it have 4 blocks. And in block 1, it has your public self. So this is the you that everyone knows. Oh my God, he's such a people person. Oh my God, she's so organized. That's the public self. You know that person, and everyone knows that about you. But then there's the blind spot. And you know what's the blind spot? Everyone have experienced this. When someone say, you know, you like to do that, and you say, me, I like to do that. Or they say, you think you're a very organized person, and someone, your family member or your friend say, you know, you're very disorganized. And you say, I disorganized? It's these things that make us defensive, but it's also the opportunity to make us grow and enhance us. So ever so often, you could ask for feedback. Do I have a blind spot that I'm not aware of? And then there's the hidden self. So this is the aspect of you that no one will know. You know, sometimes you might be a real socialite, and people may look at you and say, oh my God, you are so confident, you could articulate, you are well spoken. But what they don't know sometimes is those hidden insecurities, those hidden fears that they may have never told anyone about. So that's the hidden self. And then there's the last window of opportunity, the unknown. Like this conversation we're having, these opportunity for growth and development. So this is known as the unknown. So when we think about it, it really brings joy to our life. I hope it just did. Because as you think about it, you say, wow, maybe I could consider doing this. Let me sit down with a pen and paper. And you know what? You are a person highly admired by others. Just look out, just seek it out. Someone truly admire you. I want you to remember that. Someone admire you. Sometimes we may say, no one admires us. Yes, there are persons who admire what you do. So now that we have done that, the next big thing will be, what do I desire to accomplish in life? List your goals. A pen and paper. List your goals. You may say, what do I want to achieve between the month of October and December? I want to end 2020 with a bang. I have less than 3 months, and I'm going to plan something. I'm going to do something, plan a goal, maybe call a friend, set some small goal for myself, learn how to do a new meal. And these are things you could still set goals. What about a year from today? What would I be saying in 2021? I would have learned new things. I would have learned how to master the computer. I would have learned how to sign up a Zoom meeting or different. I would have learned more about technology than I ever knew before. But the thing is, where do I see me 10 years from today? Or maybe what legacy would I like to leave for generations to come? What do I want to write on my scroll in remembrance of 2020? You know, like when we look back at the pandemic and the years ago, and we are now a part of history. What do I want to leave as a legacy, being part of history? Would these desires include others? Am I going to set goals just as it pertains to my life alone? Or am I going to set that going to benefit others? And when we do that, you ask, how will it benefit others? So I'm really, remember I told you all, purpose is about thinking. So it's a lot of thinking. Identify some limitations that may hinder you from achieving the goal. Now, if you're able to project limitations, you are less overwhelmed. Or sometimes you're not even overwhelmed at all. Because you factor that in. So let's say how that works. You are going to do business in the city. So maybe if you live in Arima proper, or you're going to Port of Spain or San Fernando. So you know a particular time, it may have a lot of traffic. So you say, you know what, I want to get to this office for 8 o'clock. Now if I know peak time, I will now say I have to factor in maybe leaving home. Usually on a normal day, I may leave home 20 minutes and get there in time with sufficient time. But now I have to factor in the traffic, which may be a limitation to my destination. And when I factor in that, I might say I would leave home at least 2 hours before that time. So now the thing that seems as a limitation, that I reach late and I'm confused and I'm flustered, if you factor in your limitations, you really have minimum crisis. It kind of minimizes your crisis. So that's one way. That's just one example. You may ask another important question, how long do I think I need to achieve these goals? Most persons think about that. And sometimes just thinking about it could make you start to think irrational. So you may say, I want to achieve this goal. I want to get my PhD in 6 months. That could be that's irrational. So I want, when you think about how long, always remember this. Time and change will always remain. Generation come, generation go. There will always be time and change. But the big thing there is opportunity. You have to be realistic. So you could do some research. I want to do my PhD. What do I want to do? I always dreamt of getting a degree. I've always dreamt of doing a sewing course. You start to ask, where can I get it? How long will it take? How much does it cost? So when you do your own research, or even if you wanted to be a plumber, I think I want to learn how to do tiles. So I'm looking for a little short course. So when we do this, no longer are we feeling overwhelmed and we are feeling like maybe I could never achieve that goal. I want you even to think about who has achieved that goal. Start a research. You might be shocked to know how many persons, regardless of their age, was able to achieve everything that they desired. So now we are going into, I like to do a little research on successful people. And, how did they get there? Often we look at people and we say that maybe they're lucky. Sometimes we want their reward with our sacrifice. And I need to say that for someone. Sometimes we look at people and we say, wow, they are so lucky. And we want their reward by our sacrifice. So we are not willing to sacrifice as much as they have been or go through some of the adversities they went through, but we look at them and we want their reward. So I looked up at Steve Jobs and I looked at the idea of him having a desire, a purpose for technology. Amazing, because how relevant is technology today? And he wanted to create a smart phone. And he looked at in the industry and he wanted to design this smartphone. And how can I get this? So you remember the goal? It may have seemed unrealistic at that time. No one else had a smartphone. What is a smartphone? I mean to say, but he had a dream. He had a dream. And he took that dream and he started to put a plan. So we're going to talk about the plan. So one, just as I would have mentioned before, he wrote down his desire and his ideas. And you could do the same, write them down. He set aside time daily to master the desire. You see, we could have a dream, but we don't want to have a plan. We could have a dream, and we start action, but we don't have a plan. So it's really about, we have a dream or a desire, then you put it in plan, you write it down, then you go into action, remember the little research, or you find out about it, others, and that's how you become successful. So I observe his pattern. So he set aside time, because the more you spend time with something is the more you become passionate, the more you love it, the more you want to do it, the more creative you become. And then he started to set short-term goals. Remember when my colleague talked about SMART goals? And he started to set long-term, because you want to be realistic. So he set some short-term and some long-term. And he said he called them urgent and not urgent. So what do we need to do now? It might be write it down. That becomes urgent. Do some research. And he said when he worked out, he worked on his emotional status. And he wanted a healthy body and mind. And he sat down and think. Remember, I told you purpose is about thinking, all right? So what he thought about, there are followers. So he thought about two set of people he need to be around. And we too need to know that. You know the people who will always discourage you? How you come up with that? Who will believe in you? I don't find that a good plan. But then some people will say, wow, I've never heard about it before. It sounds interesting. Okay. So he decided about the followers. He started that I will be around people and following in some form of technology because he know what he wanted to go and please remember, sometimes remember I say include someone. So sometimes where you want to go, you may not have all the answers, but there are people who have gone where you would like to go, or some aspect of your journey you all could partner. So he said he decided he want to be with the followers and not the party people. So he saw people in three categories: the followers, not the party people, but he looked at persons in partnership. So they say these followers is now that we all wearing masks, there are people that will follow and they want a mask like yours, the followers. He said not the party people. These are people who just very emotional, they're in the here and now. But he said, you know what? He realized he needed to be with partners. People are like himself. People with a mindset like him. People, can you see how important it is for your purpose as your guide? So when he realized when people are partners, it's like that chess game and people with a like mind, and they started to play games and they understood the language. So he said, so we end with this part, is life a game? And he said, now I go out there and I play it. So they believe that yes, life is a game and I'm going out there and I'm going to play hard and I'm going to win. So when we think about discerning the purpose now for our family, because when we go out there and play that game hard, I mean to say, come on, he wants at the end of the day that 10 generations down the road, his sacrifice today could be seen in the future at a more rapid speed. Smartphone, I don't even know what number it might be, but it's about now you are thinking about, now that I have played the game, I want all that I've learned, I want it now to become a legacy. So he thought of, we are going to talk about harmony. So this is the part when we are doing our discerning, our purpose-driven guide for our family. What's going to become the harmony? What are some of the things that we will be known for? So I'm Smith. What would I like the Smiths to be known for? What do I want my great-great-grandchild to be known for? So some people may say, I want us to be uniquely known for a particular thing. Some family, when you call their names, they say, wow, oh, I know that name. Oh, yes. So can you imagine what will be some of those things you would like people to say, wow, oh, your great-grandfather was an intelligent man. So I guess you are intelligent as he is. Oh, you all were known for drapes. You all were known as the best chefs. Can you imagine? Look at KFC and McDonald's and what will be the legacy for their families. But then sometimes we may have different dreams. And you may say, so what do we do when we have different dreams? And I want you to know that we can all dream and they could become a sum total of our family legacy. So often there may not always be the harmony, you know, like in some families, everyone are in the medical field, or all of us are lawyers, or all of us are carpenters, or we are all musicians. But there might be someone who may say, I want another dream. And it's an opportunity for diversity, you know, like the Caribbean, like a melting pot. It's the opportunity for diversity. And now we come to the point where all this, where we will have our questions and answers, but not only that, but we have our breakout room session. This is where it come alive. This is where all that was spoken will really become, you know, when I talk about you think about it, I'm certain you are excited. Now our behavior is to literally do it. So what I need you to get at this point will be some paper. Because remember, we have to write our thoughts, and would be some color pencils. It's going back there to the little child in you where we're going to be coloring. And I want you to get excited. So in these breakout sessions, so persons who decide which one. So let me tell you what's available. It's about understanding me. Drawing your iceberg. Oh, you know, sometimes we think about an iceberg and the strength, our strength is just peeped there, a little pyramid there of our strength. But then there are some triggers and there are some things under that iceberg that could really, sometimes it's deceptive. No one knows what's happening, like the Johari window. So we're going to do some drawing and it will be amazing. What about when we talk about, as I would have spoken, about dreams? I want you to dream. I want you now to be going to sit down and plan. So we're going to write down these dreams. We're going to take action. And we are going to be successful. So I do hope that this was really useful. I hope that your purpose-driven life will be the best life ever, 2020 and beyond. And thank you for the time that you have spent with me. This is Arlene Smith. Thank you. So good afternoon, ladies and gents. I do hope that your purpose of as your guide was really an amazing time just thinking and reflecting. And I want you to know this as before we enter into questions and answers, that Maya Angelou said that people will never remember what you said. They may never remember what you have done in this life. But one thing I want you to know is that they will never forget the way you made them feel. So when we think about purpose as our guide, we have to think about what the impact would be on our lives, how we made us feel, and how we will make others feel in the journey of life. So now we enter into the questions, and I hope that you have some burning questions to ask. As me and my co-host, I think we'll be able to do a good job today on our last day. So co-host, are you ready?
Well, I'm ready. And again, we want to encourage persons to ask questions. If you can, put the questions in the chat, or you could put up your hand if it is that you want to say something. So over to you all. You all have heard the presentation on a purpose